and the subcommittee will come to order. I'd like to begin this hearing, as we do all within the Oversight Committee, by reading the Oversight Committee's mission statement. We exist to secure two fundamental principles. First, Americans have a right to know that the money Washington takes for them is well spent. And second, Americans deserve an efficient and effective government that works for them. Our duty on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee is to protect these rights. Our solemn responsibility is to hold the government accountable to taxpayers, because taxpayers have a right to know what they get from their government. We will work tirelessly in partnership with citizen watchdogs to deliver the facts to the American people and bring genuine reform to the federal bureaucracy. This is the mission of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. We'll start with my opening statement. Today's hearing focuses on the federal government's human resource bureaucracy and whether or not it's serving its agency customers and the American taxpayers efficiently and effectively. The Office of Personnel Management operates a $2 billion business selling products and services to the very same agencies it oversees. As OPM's workload has increased, so too has the number of investigative cases, referrals, and requests for audits. This has amplified concerns about OPM's revolving fund business model. Last year, Inspector General McFarland told the committee his office had been flooded with requests from OPM to audit or investigate various aspects of the revolving fund. In April, the IG found senior OPM officials had used their position to give preferential treatment to revolving fund vendors and failed to comply with federal contracting rules. In May, Inspector General McFarland informed the committee of an ongoing investigation in which a revolving fund contractor used deceptive practices to avoid fulfilling certain requirements under its contract with OPM in order to maximize profits. The IG has requested legislative language to provide access to additional resources for revolving fund oversight. The authority seems to be an investment that can be accomplished at a relatively low cost using existing funds. At the time when agencies are furloughing workers to meet payroll, questionable business practices affect the entire federal government. Each month seems to bring another confirmation of the waste within the revolving fund. I look forward to hearing from today's witnesses as we examine whether OPM should be the regulator and the business service provider and seek to better understand the business practices that have led the IG to request additional funds for critical audit needs. And I will now give Mr. Lynch a chance for his opening statement. We'll recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank the witnesses for coming before the committee, helping us with our work, which is to examine the pricing and quality of services provided through the Office of Personnel Management's Revolving Fund Program and the Administration's legislative proposal to increase its oversight. OPM's Revolving Fund provides background investigations, training, and other HR products and services to federal agencies on a reimbursable basis. These services are essential for effective government. OPM's revolving fund budget has grown from $191 million in fiscal year 1998 to over $2 billion today. The revolving fund activities comprise about 90% of OPM's total budget, with about two-thirds of the agency's staff devoted to this fee-for-service component of OPM's operations. However, private contractors perform most of the work. The Government Accountability Office and OPM Inspector General have expressed concerns in recent years about the pricing and the quality of those background investigations and other products and services. OPM's Inspector General also identified certain programs as vulnerable to high risk of waste, fraud, and abuse. GAO also recommended that OPM look to increasing efficiencies in its background investigation processes. OPM's significant reliance on a vast contractor network to conduct background investigations and to provide HR solutions appears to present additional challenges to effective contract management and oversight. This hearing is important to strengthening oversight of OPM's revolving fund. OPM's Inspector General has indicated that he is currently hamstrung by the limited resources he has to conduct audits and investigations of OPM's revolving fund programs. Under current law, the Inspector General's budget provides only $3 million to finance its oversight of a $2 billion operation, along with OPM's other non-trust fund programs, such as the Combined Federal Campaign and the Dental, Vision, and Long-Term Care Insurance programs. I'm sympathetic to the Inspector General's dilemma, and I look forward to evaluating the Administration's legislative proposal to remedy that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the witnesses for their appearance here today. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Members will have 7 days to submit opening statements for the record, and we'll now recognize our panel. Mr. Chuck Grimes is the Chief Operating Officer of the Office of Personnel Management. Ms. Linda Ricks is Co-Chief Executive Officer for AView Technologies Corporation, and Mr. McFarland, of course, is Inspector General from the OPM. So pursuant to committee rules, all witnesses will be sworn in before they testify. If you'll please rise and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Let the record reflect that all witnesses have answered in the affirmative, and you all may be seated. In order to allow time for questioning, we ask that you limit your verbal testimony to 5 minutes. We've received and reviewed your written testimony, and of course your entire written statement will be made part of the record. I guess we'll go left to right and start with Mr. McFarland. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman Farenthold, Ranking Member Lynch, and members of the subcommittee. My name is Patrick McFarland. I am the Inspector General of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. Thank you for inviting me to testify at today's hearing about the administration and oversight of OPM's revolving fund. Once again, I am seeking the committee's help. In 1978, the U.S. Congress took a bold step in creating the Inspector General Act. Bold in that it was an experiment born out of a multitude of government-wide mistakes, serious problems, and just plain wrongdoing. In the face of much opposition from entrenched government bureaucracy, it was, I believe, Congress's pledge to the American citizens that their expectations of good government would be met, and as a result, their tax money would be protected. The Inspector General concept has transparency at its core functionality. It must be transparency without any shades of gray. Indeed, it is with this understanding that each Inspector General's organization honors the independence required of them, free of any political influence which Congress mandated. We realized as early as 2006 that OPM's revolving fund operations lacked adequate transparency and thus required additional oversight that our budget could not support. Since that time, the OPM revolving fund has developed into a $2 billion behemoth business structure that should attract more stakeholders' attention, but instead seems to exist and operate in a vacuum. The OPM revolving fund requires immediate scrutiny. To this end, the President's fiscal year 2014 budget includes our legislative proposal, which former Director John Berry fully supported. This proposal will require Office of Inspector General oversight of the revolving fund to be paid for by the revolving fund. Please be assured that our Office of Inspector General is at the ready to jump deep into all of the programs financed by OPM's revolving fund. Based on evidence and intuition, we know there are extremely serious problems. We already have several projects in high-risk areas that we are eager to begin, such as an initiative to closely examine the Federal Investigative Service Program Office and determine whether there are deficiencies that may be affecting national security, as well as an audit of the pricing methodology used by Human Resources Solutions. Let me be clear, it is not my intention to grow government, but simply to perform the task entrusted to me by you and by the taxpayer. I cannot stress enough that problems within OPM's revolving fund do not affect only OPM. Every major Federal agency purchases goods and/or services from OPM through the revolving fund programs. Consequently, any fraud, waste, or abuse that occurs in these programs has a government-wide ripple effect and thus impacts the use of the appropriations of all of its customers. They say that sunshine is the best disinfectant. OPM's revolving fund programs have been operating in the shadows for far too long. You have already taken significant action by holding a hearing, the first to my knowledge, on the revolving fund. I ask the subcommittee now take one more step and assist us by amending the revolving fund statute so that together we can bring OPM's revolving fund program into the light with full transparency where all government operations are meant to function. The committee's involvement will ensure that this issue will not slip back into the shadows. Thank you, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McFarland. We will get to questions when we've finished with all of our witnesses. Mr. Grimes, you're up for 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Chairman Farenthold, Ranking Member Lynch, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the OPM's revolving fund and the government-wide services it supports. The fund was established by Congress in 1952 to allow OPM's predecessor, the U.S. Civil Service Commission, to recover the costs of conducting background investigations for other Federal agencies. It has subsequently been expanded to authorize OPM to provide assistance and personnel management functions at the request of agencies on a reimbursable basis. OPM provides a wide range of human resources management services to other Federal agencies, and the payments for those services are consolidated under OPM's revolving fund. The revolving fund is similar to many other such funds across the Federal Government. The aim of the revolving fund is not to generate a profit, but instead to break even over a reasonable amount of time, generally defined as 3 years. Providing human capital services and training for Federal employees, conducting background checks, and other revolving fund services are integral to OPM's core mission of recruiting and retaining a high-performing workforce to protect and advance the interests of American citizens. The revolving fund includes a diverse range of programs, including Human Resources Tools and Technology, Enterprise Human Resources Integration, the Presidential Management Fellows Program, and the Human Resources line of business. And I would like to briefly discuss the 3 most public faces of the revolving fund: Federal Investigative Services, Human Resources Solutions, and USA Jobs. OPM's background investigation program's performance is strong. We have no backlogs, are meeting congressional timeliness mandates for OPM under the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act, and have increased automation. Since driving down average investigative timeliness from 145 days in 2005 to 40 days today, customer agencies have realized over $26 billion in cost avoidance and efficiency. Additionally, the Government Accountability Office had long listed the Government Personnel Security Clearance Program at the Department of Defense on their high-risk list. OPM assumed responsibility for the background investigation function in February of 2005, and the program was removed from the high-risk list in January 2011 as a result of the major efforts of OPM, the Office of Management and Budget, DOD, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Despite a shift towards more costly fieldwork-intensive investigations, OPM remains resourced to meet the investigative timeliness and quality standards based on the projected needs of the executive branch community that we service. HRS provides human resources products and services through a variety of methods to meet the needs of the Federal Government. HRS offers a by government, for government solution to a variety of human resources needs and is uniquely well positioned to help Federal agencies meet the recruitment, testing, and training needs. The HRS team has expert knowledge and experience with Federal policy and operating environments and designs and delivers solutions well suited for government. In recent years, HRS has worked with OPM's Office of the Inspector General to become even more transparent and efficient. HRS offers agencies the opportunity to access world-class consulting experience from pre-competed private sector companies through our training and management assistant contracting vehicle. Pre-competition allows agencies to save valuable time and resources in gaining access to consulting experts in conformance with OPM's contracting requirements. Finally, USA Jobs is another critical program that operates through the revolving fund. Pursuant to law and OMB guidance, USA Jobs operates on a fully reimbursable basis, charging fees to agencies that use USA Jobs to pay the cost of providing Federal employment information to the public, along with various services. USA Jobs offers a wide array of products and services to job seekers, agencies, and vendors. These products include the job board with job opportunity announcements, the resume builder, the agency recruitment portal, mobile apps, and the USA Jobs help desk. To increase quality, we've worked to increase agency participation in USA Jobs by encouraging cross-government involvement and integrated project teams. These teams have led to direct system improvements to the USA Jobs resume and user profile sections, greatly benefiting the user experience for the thousands of job seekers using the service. We've also successfully cleared audit and security reviews by OMB and the White House Cross-Agency SWAT Team, OPM's Office of the Inspector General, and the Department of Homeland Security. OPM agrees that it is important to have a strong oversight in order to ensure the integrity of the revolving fund, and we look forward to continuing to work with the OIG in this area. I'm proud of the government-wide services that OPM provides and look forward to addressing any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. We will now go to Ms. Brooks-Ricks. You're recognized for 5 minutes, ma'am.
Chairman Farenthold, Ranking Member Lynch, and members of the subcommittee, good morning. My name is Linda Ricks, and I am the Chairman and Co-CEO of AV Technologies Corporation. I want to thank you today for the opportunity to testify on this important topic. AV provides a comprehensive human resources management platform to Federal agencies using a cloud-centric model. If you combine the content of Westlaw, the rules engine's capabilities of TurboTax, and the ease of self-service ATM machines, you would have the equivalent technology AV offers to its Federal government clients. AV has competed with the Office of Personnel Management's human resource products and services for more than 10 years. Before founding AV, I began my career and spent 5 years as an employee of OPM. The subject of this hearing is whether OPM's revolving fund is a cycle of government waste, and the resounding answer to that is yes. There are 3 compelling factors that lead to this conclusion. First, despite dramatically reduced hiring government-wide, the cost of Federal HR has escalated dramatically at the time when the private sector has reduced its HR staff by 21% and its cost per hire by 28%. The Federal sector has increased its HR staff by 41% and its cost per hire is more than 12 times that of industry. The real breadth of OPM's impact can be seen at the VA, which uses OPM's USA staffing product by mandate for all of its hiring. In the last 5 years, the VA has increased its HR specialist workforce by over 51% and has created a corresponding increase in HR payroll of $100 million per year. During the same period, the VA awarded contracts for HR services at a rate of $16 million per year and paid OPM an average of $216 million per year for the last 3 years. After increasing its payroll by $100 million, its contractor support by $16 million, and its fees to OPM by $216 million, the VA hired a net 13,475 fewer people in 2012 than it did in 2008. If you look across government for the last 5 years, agencies using OPM USA staffing product have increased their HR payroll, added contracted services, and paid OPM extremely high fees while concurrently reducing the number of new hires. The second factor that gives rise to this level of duplication and waste is that OPM is an innovation inhibitor. OPM has a clear self-interest in promoting inefficiencies that are better in line with its own products and services. For example, OPM mandates that all agencies post positions on USA Jobs. OPM spent $20 million recoding the existing monster USA Jobs system, plus another $1 million in emergency fixes to insource the USA Jobs Board from Monster. To date, features and functionalities would be typical of what one would find in a job board in the 1990s. At the same time, private employers have dropped their use of job boards. Today, private sector only hires 1 of every 6 people from job boards. Progressive employers leverage innovations like LinkedIn, search engine marketing, social media sites, and employer referrals. While the VA is one example, Inspector General McFarland correctly observes that OPM's problems affect the entire government. OPM offers that its customers choose products because they are better than private offers, and they are by government for government. But Federal HR is not any more complicated than you would find in a unionized company, and the theory that OPM's technologies and services are cheaper or even cost competitive are not validated. This brings us to the third factor, OPM's extraordinary conflict of interest, and the lengths to which OPM will go to expand its revenues. OPM violates the Competition Contracting Act, illegally asserting OPM products may be purchased through the Economy Act and therefore non-competitively. OPM duplicates GSA 738X, Federal Supply Schedule, and adds layers of waste in the form of excessive fees. Where GSA is capped as a service fee of not to exceed 0.75%, OPM openly states that its fees range from 8% to 12%. OPM also abuses its role as portfolio manager for the HR line of business. It exerts its role as advisor to agencies to steer contracts exclusively to Federal shared service centers. This illustrates the dual identities of OPM, one as regulator and the other as a for-profit business. As a for-profit company, OPM is a systemic reason the Federal Government HR costs are skyrocketing. Of course, OPM has succumbed to its own monetary interests at the expense of what is best for the government as a whole, and every day furthers this extraordinary conflict of interest while insulating itself from competition with the private sector. OPM's legitimate role must focus exclusively on its statutory mission, which desperately needs to be restored. Its revolving fund business, which draws all resources and intellectual attention, should be returned to the private sector so that the government can enjoy billions in savings through the elimination of wasteful spending as illustrated here. Thank you for this opportunity to contribute to this hearing. This concludes my remarks, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. Mr. Grimes, Ms. Ricks really does point out what is a great deal to concern with me, in that you guys are both the regulator and the vendor. You set the rules and you say, all right, you can go out to the private sector and do this and comply with all these rules, or come on, bring it in here, do it with us. I mean, do you see a conflict there, and how do you answer Ms. Rick's concern about that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We don't see a conflict at all. In fact, we provide a vehicle for training and management and so forth through our Training and Management Assistance Program that utilizes private sector contractors. In fact, 80% of the work that we do in HRS is through private sector contractors, so they're certainly not being cut out of the deal. The bright line that we have is that our Merit Systems and Accountability Division that evaluates whether agencies are examining and hiring people in the right way has nothing whatsoever to do with our Human Resources and Products Division. They don't tell agencies that they need to use them. The HRS merely provides an opportunity for agencies to get lower cost contracting help in a quick way for their training, hiring, assessment needs.
All right, thank you. Mr. McFarland, have you done any, in the IG's office, done any investigative work as to the competitive practices there? I realize this is something we didn't.
No, Mr. Chairman, we have not done any work in that area.
All right, great. I'm going to, Mr. Grimes, do y'all use appropriated funds to operate any of the revolving fund, or is it fully self-funding?
The revolving fund is fully self-funding. We work on a cost recovery principle of whatever we spend, we recover from our customers.
And y'all don't use appropriated funds to promote it or anything like that?
Absolutely not.
All right, well, that's certainly good to hear. Mr. Grimes, Inspector General recently informed the committee of an investigation involving an OPM contractor utilized by the Revolving Funds Investigative Service Division. Given the particularly serious nature of the investigation, is the contractor still conducting background and security investigations as a OPM contractor, and what steps has OPM taken to address the concern raised by the IG?
Mr. Chairman, that is under the Department of Justice is looking into that, and I just can't comment right now. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate that. I would, as the investigation progresses, I do think it's important that this committee be kept abreast of what's going on, particularly with those investigations. It's especially troubling that this investigation involves background checks that are critical to not only the trust in the government, but the safety of American people. Let's talk a little bit about technology. Of the 26 record checks that OPM currently performs, Mr. Grimes, only 7 return records in machine-readable format. 9 only provide hard copy records, and there are no common standards for data structure or formats for FIS providers. What's hindering the progress, and how can we get this automation going to save money and speed the process?
Mr. Chairman, I regret that I can't tell you that because I'm not in the FIS operation, but we can certainly take it for the record and get you an answer.
All right, I would appreciate that. And let me ask Ms. Ricks a question. You indicate that the online system for finding jobs is more antiquated than I think you say a 1990s system. Can you expand a little bit on what effect you think that is having on the quality of applicants and the process overall?
Sure. As many of you know, the USA Jobs Board is a mandated jobs board. It actually is generated from an older requirement by statute that OPM ensure that federal agencies provided public notice of job postings, which is completely different than a centralized controlled job board. The purpose of the job board is essentially to be able to let people know that have been riffed from the federal government due to base realignment closure and other principles, what job opportunities might be available to them so that they can be restored to public service. Right now, the OPM Jobs Board is very confusing. It leads to a lot of people who are expending resources. The VA is a very good example here. The VA's part of the $16 million a year it spends is in media buys for recruitment. In doing those media buys, they've spent about $100 million in media buys in the last 5 years. When you see a local advertisement for jobs at the VA for critical healthcare professional positions, you then go to USA Jobs where the VA has approximately 30 to 40% of the job postings on any given day, which means you are going through 3,000 to 4,000 individually posted jobs to find a position for which you would like to apply.
It's an ongoing problem. I mean, I'm down at my VA office regularly talking to them and talking to veterans who are saying we don't have the doctors. So how do we get the doctors in better? What do we need to do to fix that?
What needs to happen is the VA needs to be able to do single job postings, for example, for physicians, allow users to select locations in which the user would like to work, not have 4,000 job postings where a user has to individually search every job posting, not just to determine where it is, but also to determine whether they're even eligible to apply for the posting. So centralizing that process and running open continuous recruitment is the best way to go about that objective, but you have to have technology.
There are off-the-shelf solutions to do that, or cloud-based solutions to do that, where we don't have to spend a whole lot of money reinventing the wheel.
Absolutely.
All right, I see my time is greatly expired. I will, of course, extend the same courtesy to Mr. Lynch in his questioning. So we'll recognize Mr. Lynch for 5 minutes plus a minute 33.
All right. No problem, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Mr. McFarland, good to see you again. And I do want to say that I do share some of the concerns that you've raised and Ms. Ricks have raised with the lack of pricing transparency. This has been raised before by GAO. Mr. Grimes, what have you done to address the concerns that they have and that I share with the lack of pricing transparency?
This year, our FIS organization released an annual report that has extensive price transparency included in the annual report. For our HRS operation, the prices are clearly marked, as they say. Agencies know what they are getting when they buy services from HRS, and the prices are either set in advance or negotiated with the agency, and they do know exactly what they're getting and how those prices were arrived at.
That's part of the problem. Now, Ms. Ricks has pointed out, and it seems that Mr. McFarland agrees, that in some cases, for the same investigation, that OPM is charging about $1,500 more per investigation than some of the folks in the private sector. And we're doing an awful lot of these. And also the amount of money we're spending is staggering here. The cost to conduct background investigations increased by almost 79%, from $602 million in fiscal year 2005 to $1.1 billion in fiscal year 2011. So what are we doing to, increase competition and, we've got some difficult challenges here fiscally, across the budget. What are we doing in this regard to bring these prices down and introduce some real competition?
First of all, with respect to comparisons between other agencies that conduct background investigations and our FIS operation, it's important to note that I think the example maybe was NSA. They have appropriated funds, so when they charge for an investigation, they don't recover the cost of those appropriated funds. Our FIS operation has to recover all funds. We get no appropriated funds. If we were to get appropriated funds, say for our personnel, our costs would go down by 27%. So it's not exactly a fair comparison.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Mr. McFarland, what do you think I should do here? If we wanted to fix this, give me a couple of bold strokes that would help us get to a better place with this whole process. I'm sorry. Say that again.
Show me the money.
Show me the money. And could you elaborate on that?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Okay. I bet you can. So why don't you take a minute and do
Well,
that?
the question, it goes right to the heart of our concern and our frustration, is that we just have not been able to do in the revolving fund the work that we need to do by any stretch of the imagination. We have devoted as much time and money as we can from our salary and expense fund to do work in that revolving fund area, especially on the Federal Investigative Service cases, because to us they demonstrate the real problem that could occur at any given time, and that's picking the wrong person for a government job, picking the wrong person that's going to get a particular classification that shouldn't have it. There are many instances of that taking place, not just with OPM employees per se, but with the contractors. So what we want to do is, it's a broad scope, but the only way I can describe it is we really want to delve into everything in the revolving fund, because it's at $2 billion. It's out of control from our perspective in as much as we can't tell you hardly anything about it. And that's a real shame. And where we were talking a minute before when Mr. Grimes was talking about transparency, that things are published. Well, my point is that that's not really transparency from our perspective. Transparency is only going to be there if we give an independent review of it. Right.
Well, I just want to say, maybe this is editorializing, but I think the chairman and I are of a like mind on this. We should be able to come up with something that would allow you to have that transparency. I think that serves our economic interests as well as our national security interests to make sure that happens. So, I'd like to work with you on this and figure out a way that we can make that happen. Ms. Ricks, I'd like to. Would you have some thoughts of your own in terms of how we can straighten this mess out?
I think one thing to really focus on is the availability of private sector alternatives for highly scalable technologies that can be instituted quickly. I think you had a hearing previously related to retirement examinations and processing. There are plenty of options out there in the private sector that OPM could adopt that would, in effect, reduce both cycle time and cost dramatically. In addition to that, I'll throw this out there even though it might be fairly controversial, I do think that OPM should delegate more of its authorities directly to agencies, where agencies can manage those funds, despite Mr. Grimes saying that the fact that there's appropriated funds makes the process cheaper. It's all still taxpayer funds.
That's right.
And it's just a redistribution of that.
Right, exactly right. There are no appropriated funds, but you're charging these federal agencies who are being funded by taxpayer money, so there's a pass-through here, so there is a real cost to the taxpayer, even though it's not through the appropriations process. I get that. Yeah, thank you. I'm just about out of time, but thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lynch. We will now go to the gentlelady from the District of Columbia, Ms. Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank you for holding this hearing. I generally support revolving funds, and normally because they're cost savings, we see the opposite here. I really am confused. Oh, by the way, Mr. Chairman, I see that the President has a proposal in his budget to give the Inspector General precisely the jurisdiction he would allow. And I hope our subcommittee or committee quickly authorizes this, carries it to the floor so that we can see this done this year. It seems to me that hands down, the case has been made for that oversight. I am confused here, though, because as I read your testimony, Mr. McFarland, he notes that the revolving fund relies heavily on contract employees. So it does seem to me that that the OPM has partly privatized this anyway, and I don't understand if the reliance on contract employees saves you money, then it seems to me you should explain why this is such a government operation. You're not using federal employees, and I would wonder if you use federal employees, would these extraordinary increases be any less? Yes, that's directed to, I'm sorry, that's directed to the witness from OPM. Mr. Grimes?
Thank you, Ms. Norton. A couple of things. One, expenses have gone up because the ratio of more expensive investigations to less expensive investigations has gone up.
So you believe you are doing more expensive investigations than the private sector is doing?
Where
and that their costs do not reflect that?
The investigations that we do with our federal investigative staff, which consists of both federal employees and contract
What percentage is federal employees and what percentage are outsourced employees?
About half of the FIS budget is spent on contractors.
Why the difference?
We use a balance of contractors and federal employees so that when we get a lot more business, we can expand quickly through the contracting side of the house.
Is the cost any more or less for the federal employees and the contract employees?
I cannot give you a number there. Be happy to take that for the record. I don't know what those cost figures are, but it gives us the ability to expand as our need increases.
So as far as a federal agency is concerned, the federal agency is really without recourse when the federal agency comes to you, Mr. Grimes. Isn't that the case? I mean, it needs the background investigation. It wants the employee. Is there any place else for the federal agency to go?
Well, Congress told us to do background investigations, so we do them. We do over 2 million investigative products a year, deliver more than 2 million investigative products a year. And we do them under 40 days on average in accordance with the recent legislation that was directed us to do so. And we've.
Well, how do you control costs? There's no competition. How do you control costs, Mr. Grimes?
Well, we control costs through our.
Because it looks like you don't, frankly. When we look at these increases, I ask that almost pejoratively. How do you control costs? Does anybody ever sit down and say, wow, these costs are really going up? Is there any group in the agency that maybe sits down every once in a while and gives some attention to these costs?
They work very hard to control costs. In fact, the law requires us to recover the costs that we do have. And in fairness to our customers, our FIS operation works very hard to control costs. And
so one of the things you can do as you get more business and have and can charge whatever you desire is you can just go out and get more employees instead of, for example, considering, can we do this work with fewer employees, as, for example, federal agencies have to do all the time?
In fact, that's what we do. We do not staff up our federal workforce to respond to increased demand. We use.
So where have the increases then? Where's this graph? Where have the increases come then? They've not come from federal employees, have they? I mean, it hardly seems, or have they? If the increases haven't come from federal employees, I have to assume that this outsourcing gives you the ability to just go get whoever you need. You said as much when you said that, you know, when we have extra work or when we need more employees, we need these outsourced employees.
The number of investigations that require more extensive field work has gone up. So that raises our costs because it's more expensive to gather information in the field than it is.
Has the number of have federal agencies given you more people who need background checks, or are you testifying that deeper background checks are needed? The federal workforce, I don't think, has been exponentially rising.
No, I think it's the number of products probably is about the same from year to year, but the ratio of more expensive products to less expensive products has increased.
Mr. Graf, don't you see the problem? If you're sitting on a product that keeps going up, didn't you believe that at some point somebody was going to call the question on you? I mean, I'm amazed that you don't have a remedy to offer the committee for these extraordinary increases. I am speaking now for the rest of the government, which has to come to you and has no place else to go. Do you have a remedy that you would offer for these extraordinary increases?
I guess I would have to disagree that there have been extraordinary increases. The last time we had a price increase was in 2010. I think it was about 3%, and they've remained static since.
Mr. Chairman, I know I'm over my time. I was looking at a graph.
Well, without objection, we'll give you another minute or so.
Yeah, I just had a graph that caught my attention. I don't know, it was from the Inspector General. Yes, it's this graph, multi-year budget comparison of revolving fund, OPM and OIG is what it really increases there. And I'm trying to account for these, the 4,000, if I look at 4,012 and 98. And I am asking if the depth of the work that you have to do is what accounts for the increase. It's a 79% increase, for example, in pricing that I think has already been indicated to the agencies.
Our pricing has only gone up once in the last, I think, 5 years, and that was in 2010.
OPM's reported cost to conduct background investigations increased by almost 79% in fiscal year 2005 to $1.1 billion fiscal year 2011.
I think
that's a GAO report.
Right, and I think that reflects, again, the depth of the investigations that are required and the types of investigations that have been asked for.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you can see why we need an in-depth look at this agency.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Norton. We'll now go to the gentleman from Missouri. Mr. Clay, you're recognized for 5 minutes or thereabouts.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for conducting this hearing. You know, as the stewards of the taxpayer funds, the federal government needs to prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. The concerns raised by GAO and the OPM IG regarding OPM's revolving fund provide strong support for improving the IG's oversight of the fund's activities. And I appreciate that OPM has been able to eliminate the investigation's backlog and improve its timeliness. When GAO was looking at OPM's background investigation service, it had recommended that OPM look at process efficiencies to eliminate costs. Panel members, are there particular revolving fund processes that you believe can be streamlined? We'll start with you, Ms. Brooks.
Thank you. I believe that both the investigative process, the retirement claims processing processes, the hiring and staffing process of the Federal Government, and the general process by which agencies are able to operationally execute their HR service should, in fact, all benefit from innovations in technology. And there is no reason to have conflicting requirements, to have non-digital methods of getting work done, or not having case files and records that are 100% digital going forward. And these are products and innovations that are readily available from the private sector. OPM has had a not invented here, build, don't buy process that has effectively ignored the innovations of the last 5 to 10 years in terms of where technology is today, supporting very large-scale private companies, for example.
Mr. Grimes, how can we streamline? Thank you for your response, Ms. Brooks. Mr. Grimes, any comments on how we can streamline the processes?
There's steps that could be taken to streamline the revolving fund process by, for example, looking at maybe a 5-year rate of return rather than 3 years that we do now. Possibly biannual budgets instead of annual year budgets. That would help. With regard to investigations, we are undergoing a transformation in our FIS operation to bring more automation into the process. We are looking to increase our timeliness through changing from batch processing to real-time processing. We're looking at increasing our quality by providing enhanced data validations and real-time information with the field agents as they conduct their work. We're improving our data security and so forth. So we are taking steps to improve and streamline that process.
Thank you for your response. And Mr. McFarland, any suggestions on streamlining?
Mr. Clay, this is very difficult because I sit here giving you the same answer all the time based on this particular subject. I don't know because we haven't been able to look into the processes. And it's very frustrating for an Inspector General office to have to say that, and I apologize for having to say that. But once we are able to, we will delve into everything.
Well, Mr. McFarland, given the fact that OPM's revolving fund operations are operated on cost recovery basis, does that in a way serve as a disincentive to streamline business processes and reduce costs?
Well, one might think so, simply because it's controlled, and there's really not competition per se. But once we could evaluate pricing methodology, technology, innovation, everything else, we will have some very definitive answers.
Mr. Grimes, does that serve as a disincentive to streamline business processes?
I think, again, on the surface, I can see where someone might make that assumption, but that is not the way we operate. We constantly look for ways to streamline our operations.
What about you, Ms. Brooks? And what's your opinion?
I think the VA example that I read to you is probably the clearest example of the impact government-wide of having products and services that are mandated for agency use, that are inadequate and antiquated technologies, producing considerable cost inefficiencies, and that the revolving fund does, in fact, distort the incentive for OPM because it is incented to maintain that revenue level in order to maintain its employment level.
Wow. Okay, well, thank you so much for your responses, and I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clay. As we're still under an hour here, I have a couple more questions, so we'll do a second round of questioning.
Sure.
So if you've got some more, Mr. Clay or Mr. Lynch, we'll get back to you as well. We'll get going here with the second round of questioning. Ms. Ricks, you're in a company that basically does work similar to what OPM does in their revolving fund. What percentage, or can you give me an idea what y'all spend on, I would call it quality control, security investigations? What do y'all spend doing in-house what Mr. McFarland wants to do as an IG with respect to the revolving fund? I assume you have, obviously you got a higher level of transparency in government than the private sector, but management would dictate that you have some sort of quality control similar to what a IG would do. How do y'all do it? What do y'all spend there? Percentages are good.
We probably spend about 50% of our total revenues on maintaining the security level, protocols of our data centers, and access to our systems, which is a requirement by the Federal Information Security Management Act. In addition to that, the quality control function, as well as ensuring that our expense rate is maintained at a low level. I'll give you a couple of examples of recent innovations that have allowed for dramatic cost savings for our company, which we have not seen.
Let me just have to about 45 seconds. We've got some more questions.
Okay. One thing that we have been able to do is reduce our cost of from about $1.4 million a year in data center operations to approximately $14,000 a year by adopting cloud-based solutions from Amazon that are government approved. Another is we have been able to reduce our fees to our customers by the AV Budget Protection Plan in concert with the reductions to their budget so that we can be in line with reductions that our clients are experiencing. So those are things we pay attention to and monitor constantly, as well as pricing.
All right, well, let's go back to Mr. McFarland now. I think we're going to get some bipartisan agreement that we need to get you guys looking into the revolving fund. What do you want in the legislation? How much money, how many people? Just give us an idea how you want us to craft the legislation and how you would suggest that we pay for it in this tight budgetary environment.
Well, what we've asked for in our planning was 0.33% of the total budget, and in this particular case, that would bring us to $6.6 million. Our anticipation is the first year, probably, but not for sure at all, that we would spend possibly $1.5 million to get things moving. There has to be a plan in place, which we've already started working on, and we have to move aggressively to get people trained.
All right, and so the idea, I'm sorry, I got to get to funding here, and I do have a limited amount of time. The FIS, the revolving fund, is cost plus, so we could pull some money out of that without appropriating some more money and give you some money there to investigate it and do some of the management structures without really directly costing the taxpayers some money. Is that accurate?
Are you saying such as a memorandum of understanding, that type of thing?
We just say, all right, for the for-profit or non-traditional activities, X% goes to the IG to investigate that. Obviously, that might.
That's what we're seeking in the legislation.
That's what y'all are after.
Yes.
And that no direct appropriations.
That's right.
Obviously, Mr. Grimes might argue, well, we're going to have to raise the price to our customers to pay for that. Or is there? Do y'all have some sort of flexibility in profit where a small percentage wouldn't hurt you?
Well, if we were to, let's say tomorrow we get it, and the next day we use all $6.6 million.
Right.
That is very easy to explain away as far as what the cost would be. OPM would have to raise the cost to the customer per $1,000, $3.35.
Do you
reasonable.
think, okay, Mr. Grimes, do you think you'd have to significantly raise this to your customers to fund IG looking at what you're doing?
No, we would not have to raise them significantly.
And would you have any objection to that sort of legislation with that sort of oversight?
In fact, we support that legislation.
All right, great. I appreciate that. And just one quick last question. One of the things you said in your testimony that kind of piqued my interest was you stated that the OPM has created specific training offerings for federal employees that align with the administration's management priorities. What are the administration's management priorities, and what are y'all doing with respect to that? Are there any specific courses or directives there?
I can't list off any specific courses, but they are leadership and training courses and management and so forth that we offer, that agencies.
You realize the administration has proposed a way to increase the IG's budget.
Yes, sir.
You're familiar with that. And I know in your testimony you indicated that you might be able to achieve a return of $7 for every dollar you spend.
Well, that was reflective of what we do now with the retirement and the health care. That's what we bring back now.
Okay.
And that changes year to year, of course.
Right. Do you see any problem with, the President does have a proposal as
It came with an enormous backlog, and as I mentioned in my testimony, that did increase the cost of the revolving fund, but in 6 years we were able to get that backlog eliminated and get our timeliness to processing down to 40 days. So.
And then with that, do you do background checks for the DOD?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Mr. Grimes, I understand that at the end of fiscal year 2012, the amount of surplus in the revolving fund was $379 million. Now, Mr. Grimes, does the statute authorizing OPM's revolving fund allow for the carryover of surplus
that would allow us to, for example, shut down a program without, for example, if the HRS program were shut down, there needs to be enough money there to shut the program down, and that's kind of the standard that we use. The amount of the revolving fund, I believe FIS had an independent contractor calculate what they ought to have, and that number was between $180 and $270 million. So they're probably around $210 million right now, I believe, and the balance is probably in our HRS. And I can get you more specific figures if you are
would you
interested.
do that? And do you ever turn any money back into the Treasury?
We would if we had excessive returns, but so far we have not.
Well, okay. Do you have plans for the use of the current revolving fund surplus?
That fund exists for capital investment and also the ability to shut the program down should we have to do that. So to the extent that we make more money in a year than we calculate what that fund ought to be, then we would have to do something like that, yes.
Okay, is any of the money used for conferences?
We don't spend much on conferences anymore.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
On that note, I would like to thank our witnesses and of course, my fellow members for participating. This was a great hearing, one that shows more bipartisan consensus than I think I've seen in my 2 years in Congress. I think you can count on some positive results as a result of this hearing. And again, thank you for being here, and we're adjourned.
Thank you very much.
He called on his friends, Clayton Soames and Jimmy Anderson, and